Good morning. We hope everyone is well today. And we are in Pennsylvania,
Cabot, Pennsylvania.
Cabot, Pennsylvania. We had drove over from Ohio yesterday, and had good services last night here with Hannah's Town Road Baptist Church, and we're in.
Which is a mouthful.
It is. That's the first Hannah's Town Road, but we're in missions conference the next couple of days, and we're excited about that. And we've been looking forward to being over here with the church here and getting to meet them. We have had some great travel, and God's been good to us. It's been a blessing. We enjoyed our time down in Florida, and we also were able, while we were down there, we were able to get set up with a church down there that will let us use the facilities to be able to host a family conference next January 20th and 1st. So if you're able to get away on those dates, that's a Tuesday and a Wednesday, and we're hosting it down in Orlando so that you can bring your whole family. We're going to have Tuesday, Wednesday conference and just focusing on the family, but it's going to kind of focus on all different aspects of family. So there's going to be stuff specifically for kids, specifically for teens. There'll be nursery, there'll be the couples sessions and breakouts into different areas and so forth. So dealing with marriage, dealing with family issues. There's even going to be bonus stuff on dealing with finances. And then before all of it kicks off, so it'll be Tuesday evening and Wednesday, but before it kicks off on Tuesday afternoon, we're going to have a specific time just for those families in ministry because there's some unique challenges that we face in ministry. And so we're going to have stuff specifically for ministry families from the family to the kid, to couples, kids, teens, singles, adult singles. We're going to have sessions specifically for them. A lot of young adults still live at home. They're out of high school, but they still live at home, and we want to be able to do some things to minister to them as well. And so this will be a conference for the entire family, and it's in Orlando in January. So get away from the cold weather and get down into some sun and warmth. And also there's so many family activities down there. It's amazing. We went around
free stuff too. So
all we did for 3 days was the free stuff, and we didn't even get to all of it. And it was a great time. We enjoyed it, and we found some great gluten-free places.
And we didn't even get to the beach.
No.
That's a whole nother set of free stuff.
And sometimes people think Orlando, they just think Disney, but you also have the Universal stuff. There's also SeaWorld, which is actually my favorite. SeaWorld. Now, I haven't been to Disney.
That's not free, but...
It's not, but I haven't been to Disney World or Orlando Studios, so I have to say that. But we really enjoyed SeaWorld when we were in San Antonio. And I've had several people tell me that they've been to all of those and they really liked SeaWorld. So anyway, it's just some different...
It's a neat place to take a family vacation.
Right.
And you can fly cheap, usually from anywhere in the United States.
Right.
I flew to Orlando several years ago, and I think it cost me $68 each way, which is very cheap.
Very inexpensive.
Yeah. So we rented an Airbnb and had a pool, so we had a pool we could go swim in. It was heated, so
right.
Yeah.
So we'll have more information on that as we get a little further, and there's a couple other pastors helping us with some of the planning and details for that, but we're looking forward to it. So today, though, we're talking about relationships, particularly friendships. And we've had struggle over the years in this area of friendships. It's been challenging.
Yeah, we probably didn't really develop great friendships until probably about, 6, 7, 8 years ago.
Yeah. Somewhere in that's when we really started to. And part of that, for a long time, we didn't understand the differences in relationships. I don't think a lot of times we're not taught to understand the differences in relationships and the necessity of different types of relationships. We basically just think of everything in terms of enemy or friend, and
right.
There's a spectrum there that's not often understood.
Right. From a child.
Right. Yeah, you have to be taught. You
Yeah.
have to be taught discernment and all of those type of parts. I think that, matter of fact, several years ago, I was looking at this idea of friendship, and the verse that really caught my attention is where the Lord says, a man that hath friends must show himself friendly. And I had always interpreted that in order to get friends, you have to be friendly. But that's not what that says. It says if you have friends, you have to show yourself friendly. And as I was studying that thought out, I found in looking at those words that the word friendly there wasn't what I thought it was. The word friendly in that verse actually means, it's also translated as bad and harm and mean, evil, all that type of stuff. And you think, well, okay, so a man that has friends needs to show himself bad, harmful, whatever. And that didn't make a lot of sense. It wouldn't make a lot of sense to us. And so I had to spend some time meditating on it. I think that there's a big error people make when they study the Bible. A word doesn't make sense to them, so they jump to, and this is the result of Bible critics, they must have mistranslated this. It's not mistranslated. God put there what needed to be there. But when we have to meditate on stuff, we have to think about stuff in order to really get a good comprehension of it. And so that idea, a man that hath friends must show himself friendly in the sense of showing the bad side of him, showing the side of him that he tries to hide from people. What is it that helps you become a friend with someone is when you not just enjoy being around them or they make you laugh or things, but when you're able to see things about them that aren't perfect, that aren't good even, and you still like them and you still want to be around them. And when they see those things about you and they still want to be around you, it's a gradual developing a friendship is like a gradual revelation of all the bad stuff about us, and still the desire to want to, have a relationship. And we call that, vulnerability. We become more vulnerable with each other. And as we become more vulnerable to each other, that deepens the relationship. So the person I don't want to know anything about me, vulnerable wise, is my enemy, right? And so that's the person that I want them as far away from knowing anything about me as possible. And then working your way back, maybe an opponent knows more about you because you compete against each other. You're not friends, but you're not enemies. You just compete. And then strangers wouldn't know anything about you, but you're not trying to hide stuff from strangers per se, whereas you would try and hide stuff from an opponent or an enemy. And then acquaintances, people that you just know, but you don't know them well, the person at the gas station, those type of teller at the grocery store, that type of stuff. And
somebody you see on a regular basis, but you don't really know them.
You may know their name. Sometimes you don't even know their name. You just know their face, hey, how are you, kind of thing. And then next would maybe be a resource. And a resource would be someone that you depend on for certain things. And so you're going to be more friendly with them because you have a more dependent relationship on them. And so that would be, for instance, your barber, your mechanic, those type of people who, when you see them, you have a very friendly relationship. You know some things about them more than an acquaintance, because you have these conversations and you're having a sort of relationship, but you only pursue that relationship when you need their assistance. And then would come a friend, someone you're going to have a relationship with outside of a need. And then, good friend, best friend, spouse should be the most significant relationship we have on this earth. The person that, other than our parents and family, immediate family, the person that would know the most about us of anybody in the world, right? That we have this closeness, we have this openness. My wife knows things about me my mother doesn't know, and wouldn't know, because just that as we grow and mature and develop, but then also that openness and intimacy that's there.
Right.
But that's also why no one in the world can hurt me like my wife or her husband, right? No one can hurt us like our close family who knows so many things about us. No one can hurt us quite like our best friend or our friends, because we're so vulnerable to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that issue is where we find the danger part of friendship.
Danger, Will Robertson.
Right. We were on Space Odyssey.
Totally dated myself.
We were on a space. Anyway, you're supposed to let me date you. So anyway, that vulnerability makes things close. It gives us the opportunity for closeness, but it also makes us vulnerable to betrayal. And betrayal is what destroys relationships. It's what drives people away from us. If a spouse, when spouses get divorced, there's that breaking, and then things begin to be said, things begin to be told, and so forth, that are vulnerabilities to try and make the spouse look good, or be able to get what they want out of this breakup, or those type of things, use as a weapon. And now that person becomes my enemy often because they have betrayed me. And that betrayal is so deep, it cuts so deep. It's a real destructive force in this world. So loyalty matters. Loyalty has to do with the ability to know vulnerable things and keep them in a confidence, right? So anyway, that's the development of friendship. Well, we didn't understand that. We thought every resource was a friend, and people talk that way. People would,
my friend.
Oh yeah.
Hey, this is my friend, Susie or whatever. She cuts hair and
Right.
yeah, she's a friend, but really she's a resource.
Right. And pastors are that way too. Pastors
Yeah.
are the resource to a lot of people you're a resource as a pastor to the people in your church. Now, that doesn't mean you can't have a level of friendship in the sense of we're friendly, we spend time together, we enjoy each other's fellowship and company, but ultimately, pastorally, there are things that you cannot be vulnerable with people that you minister to, because as soon as they see that vulnerability, they hold it against you, because you're supposed to be perfect as a pastor. You're supposed to have you're supposed to have it all together. You can't counsel me with in marriage issues because you have marriage problems.
How dare you sin? You're supposed to be holy.
Right. And that really is, anyone that's pastored knows that, and everyone I know that's pastored would understand what I'm about to say here, that as soon as when someone first comes into church and their first thing to you is, I'm going to be your best friend. Whoa, watch out, avoid that person. It's like they always are looking for something vulnerable about you.
Yes, so they could turn around and stab you in the back with it. And that's not an exaggeration. The word always is not an exaggeration.
Not in that circumstance. It's really not. 25 years of pastoring, never experienced it any different. But that doesn't mean that there aren't people over 25 years of pastoring that we didn't develop friendships with.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm not saying you can't ever be friends with people in your church, but those people that come right out of the gate, it's like there's something up here. They're trying to find something, or I don't know what it is, but
I don't know, but it happens every time.
So there's friendships that you develop, obviously, with people that you minister to or with, but there are also barriers to that.
Limitations.
There's limits to it. They might become more than a resource, but there's still limitations to the amount of vulnerability that you can have and still minister to people. Right. And that's just a natural thing. And as much as a person might say, well, I just don't think that's right, it doesn't change what it is.
It is true.
You can not like something and it still be true.
Yeah. That doesn't mean you have to be fake. You can still be real.
Absolutely.
You still have to be so vulnerable. And you don't have to share everything.
So there is a difference between being fake and not being vulnerable. There's a difference between those two things. And unfortunately, sometimes we
go so far the other way, trying to protect.
We put up these barriers and walls, and no one's going to hurt me. The problem with the whole no one's going to hurt me, so I'm going to put up all these walls, is that we also prevent others from loving us and having that fulfillment of relationship, because we need
isolate yourself, and then you're going to struggle with loneliness your whole life.
We need relationships.
Yeah. And we were created that way.
By the way, probably some of the most lonely people on the face of the earth are pastors' wives and missionaries' wives. And they're also the most guarded against being hurt because they've been
hurt. Yeah.
Because those people that came in and said, I'm going to be your best friend, and they didn't know the difference between, protecting their vulnerabilities and being friendly. I can be kind to people and I can be friendly with people without being friends with people. Friends means I've made myself vulnerable. But what we do is we close off like, nope, I'm not even going to be friendly with people, because friendly makes me vulnerable, but it's not friendly, it's friends. It's that, the bad stuff that we have to, but we correlate it all together because we don't make those distinctions.
Right.
And we stop being friendly. We're polite. And there is a difference between polite and friendly.
Yes, that is very true.
Well, Well, I wasn't rude to her. I wasn't mean to him. I was, I said hello, and it's like, yeah, but
But you didn't go out of your way to be friendly.
right. And there is a difference between polite and friendly. And I'm talking using friendly in a traditional sense here, not in what I mentioned a moment ago.
Because many times I've seen people stand across the room and they'll be like, hi. And then that's it. That's the only level of friendliness that they have. And then towards that other person, the other person's like, well, they just weren't very friendly at all. And then they get all upset. Like
I wasn't
I
mean.
said hello.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
like, yeah, but that wasn't being friendly. You didn't make yourself available to them, not vulnerable, but available. And I
Yeah,
think
that's a good way to
there's
put it.
a difference.
Absolutely. So it's, but because we put up those walls, we never know whether someone can be trusted because we keep everyone at such arm's length in case they might hurt us. And we do get this mentality of everyone's going to hurt me, so I'm just not going to have any relationship with anyone. But we hurt ourselves in that, and we're miserable and we're lonely and all of those things. And we blame the ministry.
Right.
As if people that aren't in ministry weren't betrayed by people. I mean, they are. Everyone
Ask every
is.
teenage girl, they have hurts from friends and all of that. You get hurt in every stage of life or every walk of life, not just ministry.
Well, teenage girls are the worst. So
I know they are the worst.
That's not a fair comparison.
But I'm just saying, I mean, it happens in every stage,
Some people say Dan's the worst. It's teenage girls.
You're right to be looked bad before God. Yes. No, but I'm just saying that it's not just ministry. It's not just pastors' wives. It's not just pastors' kids. Even normal, I'll put that in quotes because I don't think anybody's normal families, they go through the same thing. They have the same struggles.
Okay, you didn't grow up in ministry.
No.
You didn't even grow up in a church going home at that time, at the time you were a teenager, right? It was the same thing for you.
It was.
It was the same thing for your mom.
I struggled hugely with friends growing up. I had one friend I lived in the same town, the same house, started kindergarten with 30 kids, graduated with the same 30 kids. I had my next door neighbor, she was my best friend all the way up until we were in high school. And then all of a sudden it was like, she didn't want to be my friend anymore, I thought, but that's not what that was at all. I look back now and I understand, but then I didn't understand and I struggled with it. We actually fought over it all the time. Like, you don't want to be my friend. You're hanging out with so-and-so, and
right. Well, because there is that,
to the one
I can only have one friend.
Yeah.
Mentality. That is something that people struggle with. If this person's my friend, and everyone that, either I can't be friends with anyone else, or I have to be against anyone that's not their friend.
Right.
And that's a very immature perception, but it's something some people, we have that.
I struggle with that now. Like, I have many friends, and if I hear of somebody doing them wrong, I'm like, I want nothing to do with that person. I struggle with that. I know I shouldn't be that way, but I know.
Still a teenage girl.
I'm like, hey, they're my friend. You don't hurt my friend.
And there's nothing, and you ought to defend your friend.
Yeah.
If someone was attacking them, that's one thing.
Sure.
But I think in ministry, this happens where, well, I went to X school, and if you didn't go to X school, and you can't be my friend because only people that went to my alma mater are right with God and good people and that. And no one, well, some might say that even. I mean, I think that generally people would be like, well, I don't really believe that, but we act that way at times. Or if a person is, and I do think friendships matter. I think if a person is friends with a person who's evil, then that's going to influence them, and I need to be cautious about that. At the same time, I'm also to try and win them. So if I shun everyone that has a friend I don't like or I don't agree with, then what I'm doing is I'm telling them there's no opening for friendship this direction. You have to go that way. And I'm not giving them an opportunity to maybe come away from evil relationships because they have no other avenues.
They haven't seen any other example because we've walled them off.
Yeah. I honestly, I have found, and we went to a no-name Bible college. I mean, I'm I'm kind of glad
Our
for
no
that.
name.
We still have a no name Bible college in our church. But the good news about that is that most people don't have a preconceived idea about our.
We're not in any clique.
Right. There's no big name
Yeah.
to where people are like, oh, you're a follower of so and so.
Uh-huh.
And so then anything he's ever said, this well known preacher, anything he's ever said, you must agree with all of it because you went to school where he was in charge. And so therefore you agree with everything they ever said. That's such
It's dumb.
it's dumb. Dumb's a good word. So the problem is that there's so many good people out there that went to schools and didn't even sometimes when they were at the school didn't agree with things that were going on, or since they left, they're like, there were good things I learned. I took a lot of good from here. There's some things about there that were done, or some things about this person that I didn't agree with, or, whatever. That's giving people the benefit of the doubt and not being so walled off just because they went to X church or X place. I pastored long enough to realize this. Not everybody I pastored agreed with what I taught.
Yeah.
You think, well, they're in that church, they must agree with everything that's taught. That is not true.
Even just farther than that, do we not believe that God has a plan and a purpose for everybody? Can he not put somebody in a place that they need to be to learn what they need to learn? That doesn't mean everybody needs to go to Beth Haven Baptist Seminary to learn. Maybe God did have them go to, whatever popular name Bible college, because there was something there they needed to learn and they weren't going to learn it any other place.
You make this mistake that thinking that God can do whatever he wants, and
just saying,
he's got to run those things by us.
Yeah.
Really. So
I think that's how people think. And so because you don't think like I do, or you don't, hang with me in my Bible college, then we can't be friends.
Yeah, it's a common thing.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's a harmful thing because we begin to think that maybe, and there are differences in Bible colleges. There are differences in preachers.
No, I'm not.
And there are thresholds. There are thresholds of doctrine and philosophy and whatnot that are a barrier.
Sure, we should look at and examine
friendship and relationships. So I don't mean to say that
exactly.
None
So
of
I'm
that
not just saying,
but to categorize someone because they went somewhere or they're they have a friend that's from X, Y, or Z. It's harmful because it gives too many. We live based on stereotypes, and there's an element of reality to stereotypes. There's a reason that things become a stereotype. Sure. But
I have enjoyed our traveling because we have got to meet people from all different circles of Bible colleges.
Right.
And they're good people. And
yes.
Every one of them will tell you, I didn't agree with everything with this Bible college, or if I could go back now, I probably wouldn't go to that Bible college. But you know what? God used that in their life, and they're good people, and they're serving the Lord, and they're doing a good work.
Yeah.
And if you wall yourself off, you'll never enjoy those relationships, or you'll never get to be a part of those relationships.
Right. And you'll be alone.
Yeah.
And that's the reality. And sometimes it's just not conducive to if I only fellowshipped with people that went to my college, then I'd never have any fellowship with anybody. I'd never have friends because it's a smaller college, and they're across the world. It's just not possible to have relationships only with those people. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't have relationships with people like that. I'm not even saying that, but I just, we're so worried about everyone potentially being a betrayer of us, or in ministry particularly, like as a pastor. Well, if another pastor finds out something bad, he's going to go and broadcast this. He's going to tell everybody that I'm a heretic or some kind of a thing. Or for missionaries, if a pastor or another missionary finds out something, they're going to broadcast this, and we're going to lose our support, and we're not going to, we're going to be stuck here, or we're going to have to come off the field because they found out this bad thing about us. And it's a very difficult barrier to having friends. And so because of that, we were years in ministry without friends.
Yeah, probably. I say 6, 8, maybe even 10. I don't know. It seems like just recent. It hasn't been too terribly long, but I don't know what switched for us. I don't know if it was just maturity, or
I think we did get to we're very mature people. That's it. It's what it is. It's maturity.
I don't know what flipped or whatever. I don't know, or just realization, or maybe God just revealed this principle to us. I don't know what, but But I have thoroughly enjoyed, and we have many friends, and I've thoroughly enjoyed having friends in the ministry. Now, I'm not close friends with everybody that we've met, but there's a few people that we're close with.
When we learned really the difference between a resource and a friend, that helped us a lot.
Yeah.
Because of the type of ministry we have with the addictions ministry, with the counseling ministry, we are a resource to a lot of people.
I would say missionaries
are a resource to a lot.
Yes, a lot of people
and pastors,
missionaries as a resource.
Well, and missionaries often view pastors as a resource.
Yes.
And there's nothing wrong with that. This is what the problem is when we get to the idea of we conflate a person who we're friendly with because they're a resource as a friend, or when we get upset that we're a resource for someone and not a friend. And I need resources in my life that I'm friendly with. I need people. I know I need that, and other people need that. And it's okay for me to be a friendly resource in their life. They don't have to be my best friend,
right,
just because I help them, because that's the ministry God gave me is helping addicts, helping churches, helping pastors, helping missionaries. That's the ministry God gave me. So I want people to be able to use me as a resource, a friendly resource for ministry needs to help further their ministry. And it's okay for that, because what happens is if we're not careful, we start thinking people are using us, and they're just using us, and they're not, they say we're friends, but we're not really friends. They only call me when
counsel, or when they need this.
Right. And it can be destructive to our thinking.
Right. And then maybe that's what it was. We finally switched our thinking from like, oh, the only time this person talks to me is when they need material, or when they need this, or when they need that. But then I think when we switched it to, hey, wait a minute, I'm a resource for them. I'm helping them.
That's true. And then we were able to start learning how to develop friendships.
Yeah.
And then we also, we learned pretty quickly in that everyone doesn't have to be my best friend.
Right. Yeah.
It's okay for other people to have friends that aren't me and do things with people that aren't me. And that's a difficult lesson to learn, because we kind of have this from a child. Like, if you're my friend, you have to include me in everything. Why did you do something with Bobby and you didn't tell me about it? And this, it's about, this relationship's about me. By the way, Angela's been trying to find a new wreath because it's
spring wreath. I'm just going to have to make one. I made this one.
So it's one of those like relationship developments it's tough, because you have to be able to accept that it's okay for people to have friends and do things with other people that are not you. Now, there is an area where you get to a relationship, but it should be a spousal relationship. Obviously, there are things that spousally, I'm not going to have any other friends that are women that I do things with without Angela, and vice versa. Partly, I don't want to die. I like life, and but that's part of this relationship. But the problem is when we expand that to
when we're
friendship
vulnerable with other people of the opposite sex.
Well, but yeah, and that's a opposite sex issue where, within the marriage relationship that we have a protection there. I'm talking about, just broadly speaking, if another couple that we are friends with, that other couple, and they have friends that are not friends of ours, or maybe are friends of ours, but they go and do something, those two couples go and do something and don't include us, that's not because they hate us. It's not because we're not friends or those type of things. And getting over that immaturity, that junior high level thinking, it really is an immature way of thinking of friends. Is it okay for my friends to have other friends? And it is. And it's freeing, because that means it's also okay for me to have other friends.
We have probably, 5 or 6 really, really close couples in the ministry that we're close friends with. We do different things with all of them. Like the level of friendship, we're close, but we can do things with one couple that we don't do with the other. We have one couple that we like to go on vacation with because we have similar likes, similar tastes, similar health issues.
By the way, so not everybody that you're friends with can travel with you.
No, that was going to be my point. That was my point. Like, we can do those things with that couple, But we have another couple that we don't necessarily do that with, but we do other things with that are different.
And we enjoy just as much.
And I feel like we have just as close relationship with them as we do this other couple. So It doesn't matter. It's not what you do with them. It is knowing each other and knowing how you can minister to each other, how you can edify each other, how you can be that close friend with each other that determines the things you do.
Because there's interests and there's, and there's just personalities and, it just is, it's learning the differences in people and relationships.
So the one couple we go on vacation with sometimes, we love to go on vacation with them. We have great time, laugh. I mean, we're just in sync. The other couple that I'm thinking about, like we can go to a basketball game and like we're in tune. Like we're both, the wife and I, we're both like passionate about sports, so it's just now the couple we go on vacation with, they're not sports people, so I couldn't do those things with them,
right. It just wouldn't have the same connection.
I mean, I could do those things, but it wouldn't be the same. Right. So it's like you have to know your friends and you have to know their personalities and vulnerabilities and things like that, and it develops you're well-rounded, I guess I should say.
Yes. And another error I think I've seen this in preachers is the idea of, well, that person they're talking about having friends, so they must be the person I need to have friends with or be friends with, as opposed to finding those people that are already available and close. Because one of the things about friendship, you can maintain friendships over long distances.
Oh, absolutely.
One of my very best friends has been an evangelist our entire ministry. We met him early in our ministry, and he spends a lot of time overseas. And quite frankly, we only see each other once a year, and we talk maybe 2 or 3 times a year on the phone. But when we're around each other, we just pick right back up where we left off, and it's a close relationship. And I know that if I needed him or he needed me, and we made that phone call, absolutely. But we're not around each other all the time, and so friendships there's different types of friendships, and it's okay to have different types of friendships. Yeah. It's okay to have those different relationships that are not all equal. They don't all have to be the same to be a friendship.
Right. I have a group of ladies that, whenever I have, for instance, the 2 kids just had babies with, one early and one with issues, as soon as they went into the hospital and as soon as things started happening, I have a group of ladies that I text. I know that they are my close friends.
Well, your friends weren't having babies. Your children were.
But I know that I could call them or I message them. Matter of fact,
we're at the age where our friends are not having babies. Well, for the most part.
But I shot them a text because I know that those ladies are my close friends. I didn't know they were going to pray for me. Now, I shot, I could send out a blanket request on Facebook. And I know there are people that I follow on Facebook that are my friend, friendly, that are going to pray for me.
And that are friends.
Yeah, that are going to pray for me. But I have a close circle that I know absolutely will pray for me, because they're my close friends.
Right.
So.
Right. Absolutely. And part of it, I know this is what kind of we had to learn as you mature in any area of life. I say mature in the sense of you move further into that area of life. Your peer group changes, and your closest friends are going to be people that have had similar experiences, not exact same, but similar, because there's an understanding of those things. I can sit down and talk with someone who's pastored. After 25 years of pastoring, we're going to have similar experiences.
Sure.
Or just ministry generally, missionaries and evangelists. And so there's going to be similar experiences. And there's a lot of pastors and evangelists and missionaries. Praise God for that. The reality is if you look at the total of the number of people around us, that number's actually relatively small.
Right.
And so as you mature and go forward in any endeavor in life, the peer group gets smaller and smaller. Mm-hmm. And so your options or availability for people who can be close friends because of shared experiences and shared understandings and so forth does diminish. That doesn't mean you can't be close friends with someone who's not a pastor, but there are aspects of life that are going to be harder to communicate and share in that. And sometimes I think we try and hold on to relationships because, we were friends in elementary school, but as we've matured in life, we went different directions, and we have nothing in common really, other than that we went to elementary school together. And we think, well, if I don't maintain this friendship, then I'm a bad friend. And I think that sometimes understanding friendship is knowing when to let go of relationships.
Right. Yeah.
Because some relationships actually hold me back or hinder me or are bad for me. And I'm trying to hold on to them because, we swang on the swings together. So that was when we were 7. And now, I mean, here I am 50. And if I'm not trying to communicate with this person that I knew in 3rd grade, then I'm a bad person. And it's not, you're not.
It's not.
It's okay that friendships change, that they get better, even that sometimes friendships don't continue at the same level. Relationships they're dynamic. They're not static, right? They are changing. The only relationship that I must maintain is this relationship here and this relationship here. Yeah. And obviously my relationship with my family, I'm going to maintain that. But even then it can be hindered. It may not be what it was because, sometimes people make sinful choices and go sinful directions, and I can still love them and I can still be kind to them. I can still be friendly with them, but it might not be the same level of relationship.
No. Yep.
And becoming comfortable with the fact that relationships change is something that's hard.
Like every aspect of our life is about change. You don't stay an infant. You don't stay a toddler. You don't stay in high school. Every aspect of our life changes. I don't know why we expect our level of
why do you keep saying, are you ever going to grow up?
Well, why do we expect our friendships to always be the same and not change as well?
It's okay that they change.
Yeah.
It's part of life.
Part of life. It's part of life.
And coming to an acceptance of that is sometimes a necessity in order for us to develop better relationships today, that we're not held up by past relationships. Because the reality is we all have a certain level of capacity for relationships. I can only be this close to one person. And then I can have only a few best friends, maybe, I say, and then I can have more good friends, and then I can have more friends, and I can have a lot more resources. And if you've been in ministry very long, you can get a lot of enemies. A lot. I mean, there's no end to that number, right? But
we have a list.
But it's a
people that think that we're their inner. Yes.
And we can sometimes overfocus on that.
Yes.
Right? And think everybody thinks that, and they don't.
They really don't.
They don't.
In reality, the list is short.
But as you narrow that circle, that circles do get smaller coming into those relationships. We think about Jesus, and there's the 12, but there was the inner 3, right? I mean, there was that closer circle of men that were there, and that's normal. Not everyone has to be on the inner circle.
Right.
Not, was Jesus wrong to have 3 disciples that were closer to him? No, he wasn't. I mean, he is our example in all things. But we kind of have this perception that, of change. And of course, Jesus called Judas friend, and yet Judas betrayed him. And we see that those relationships, the dynamic nature of relationships. Yeah. So, and by the way, someone who betrays you, they can make themselves your enemy, but whether you see them as an enemy is your choice.
True.
I get to decide how I perceive people. And sometimes I have to be cautious. I'm really careful about how I perceive people.
I will say it's a little harder for ladies.
I'm not going to comment on that.
Well.
So
we have feelings. But again, you can't operate by feelings. You do have to operate by wisdom.
Truth. Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, those are just some thoughts about relationships and friendships. And I hope you have friends, and I hope that you make yourself friendly to people, meaning vulnerable, because that's where the true joy of relationships is. It comes from those that know bad stuff about you and love you anyway. But you can never know if they're going to be that until you start opening yourself up. And it's a little at a time. It's not all at once.
It's not all at once.
Sometimes people jump to the far end of vulnerability and then they get hurt far more often. You got to learn how to.
You have to be available.
Yeah.
As you build trust.
And you take those little steps of vulnerability and but as you do, it's a wonderful experience to have friends.
Yeah. I've enjoyed it.
Yeah. It's a blessing. Friends are a blessing. Anyway. All right. Well, we hope y'all are having a blessed day. Hey, if you have questions or if you'd like us to talk about a particular topic, send us an email at
cartersforaddictions@gmail.com. I don't know. I don't know our website.
Our email, Carter's the number 4 hope.
Hope. Oh, that's right.
At gmail.com.
Forget. I get them all mixed up. They're all similar.
Angela's.
I'm a terrible person.
You got one job.
Okay. Carter's the number 4 hope at gmail.com.
Good job, honey. Awesome. All right. We'll talk to you later. Thanks for joining us today to discuss life and godliness with Rick and Angela Carter. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, email us at carters4hope@gmail.com. That's Carters, the number 4, hope@gmail.com. Any questions you have, we'll discuss in future episodes. Right now, sit back and let's join in on the conversation.